Hello, welcome to Line War. Today we have Mr. Lobster, who I really want to just call Zoidberg, but I won't because we've got Zloygiz, and I'll just get confused between the two players. They have started really close together. However, Zloygiz has started here with a factory, two factories, a barracks, and an airfield. Pretty similar to the devs yesterday. And we have him expanding up here towards Mr. Lobster, who started eco first. And he's gone for some barracks, but they're going to build a bit slower because he's used up his spending thing. And you'd expect that this to be a bad position because, well, Zloygiz is going to block him off. But he knows this. He knows that starting here was bad. They both tried to start here at the beginning, but they both blacked each other out. So this is where they ended up going instead. And Zloygiz is going... No, Mr. Lobster is going across the water. That is going to be a priority for him by the looks of it. He wants to do that very quickly because he knows that he could get caught off guard by being blocked off. And I think that's a very good decision to start the game with. Get straight across the water, expand into new territory so that you don't get cut off. Or you find the enemy faster and know where you can go. So, Zloygiz is going this way towards him, but what is he doing otherwise? He has got a blue command here on haste because he wants to get this energy really quick, which was blocked off at the beginning. Is there any energy elsewhere on the map? It doesn't look like it. This is an interesting map. They both started over here, but there is a large mass of land in the middle and towards this, and there's a bit of an island over here, which technically isn't an island, but because of the blacklisting, there it is an island. But yeah, he's trying to haste towards that so we can get there really quick and get some energy going, because it looks like that's pretty much the only energy on this entire map. Unless I'm mistaken, there's one there and there's some in the water, which both players could get to quite easily, because although Zloygiz is here, he's probably across the water now, which, yeah, just about, and he's going to start taking some land above. So at this point, although it looked like Mr. Lobster was in a disadvantage, he's gone for eco because this is sort of a slow play. He might struggle on the front line here, but he's going to have backup from behind, potentially. So who knows? And now that he's done this, he can also start taking the territory pretty much uncontested in the water as well, which will help boost his eco. And it'll make it easier to grab this tiny little island up here. I don't know how useful that would be, but is that an energy wall? No, it's just a tiny little mountain. Got a little molehill up there. So they should probably make contact fairly soon. And he's gone for a factory now. So he's got 3 barracks. It's going to be a lot of infantry. And he's going to have a factory, which I assume he's going to be trying to build artillery and SAM, or probably just one. It doesn't look like he's going to have many units trying to cross this water. Just a few to grab some of the land over there. But Mr. Lobster's going to struggle trying to get this into a city because this one's quite far away and he had to go around to grab it. And also he's now spotted Zloygiz, which he probably wasn't expecting to do so early considering he started right in the edge of the map. But he has already started building a... Yeah, it's a barracks. Yep. He's already started building barracks over there to help his expanding efforts over there. Because infantry take land a lot faster than the vehicles do, I believe. Zloygiz has helicopters ready at his disposal. He's built a power plant due to the lack of energy that he'll have on the map. So even though he's gone for this, which I would have built this one first, I would have probably waited a bit. And have just built this factory over here. Because you've got some backup energy. I would have thought that would have probably been the best move, to just wait a little bit. Especially when you don't know where the enemy is, because that power plant is now the closest thing to his enemy as well. So it's quite exposed and it's ineffective, but costs the same amount of money. But it could prove useful if he needed it early, especially since we've seen some units already. So Zloygiz probably thinks he's in a very good position right now. He's cut off Mr. Lobster very easily. He's going for eco now, so he's built up a little town. Which I probably would not have done. I probably would have built this up instead because it's further behind. And they finally engaged. It might be the first time Zloygiz has noticed this because he's started to react with the lines. He's pulling them back with a blue command because he can see a heavy force there, which is pretty much what he's got. But he's also sneaking some units around through the mountains and the forest, which you just can't see the units there because they're stealthed when they're in the forest and mountains. But Mr. Lobster feels like he's got the advantage here. He's going to push forward. He's got a good lot of visibility, and at this point there isn't many commandos, so you pretty much know what the enemy's got. You can see the artillery coming straight through the middle. What I'd probably do is swing a couple of units around over here and get some units to go this way. But we'll have to see what he does. He's building a lot of barracks. He's relying on barracks quite heavily in this, which are very cheap and expendable units that produce from it. So, for an early game expansion, it's really not that bad. But when you've got an engagement this close, I'm not sure if it's going to be effective. I mean, I'd still try it, you know what I'm like, but it is an interesting way he's done it. He's got some SAM. He is predicting some air units to come into play soon. He's retreating his units into the forest. What can Zloygiz see? He can't see anything over here now because his units have died. But they know this is a choke point, so Zloygiz is trying to hold this line because it'll be easier to hold off the units here than it would be over here. And I think Mr. Lobster is waiting for these units to get more into position before he commits to going forward. And there the helicopters are going now. Got 4 helicopters off over there. Now he does have SAM units in the area, so I might be able to hold them off a bit. What's the expanding going on like here? He's still got some units expanding. I'd have brought these artillery back, probably, and just kept it to infantry to expand over here, because they're less effective, and you can see how important artillery are in big numbers this way. So the more you have, the easier it'll be to defend. And he hasn't got his SAM unit coming in yet. Where is it? It's over there. He's trying to bring it in the mountains so it can't be seen, and it can reach them now. But I think those helicopters are too numerous. They're going to take out these infantry pretty fast. And if Zloygiz can see those units, he's probably going to send them there next. He can't. He's going straight for that, which will expose the SAM unit, I would have thought. He can't see it yet. There we go. He can see it now, but that's because it's off the mountain. What can Zloygiz see up there? So he sent some units here, and he sent some to expand a bit further up there. Which actually isn't that bad of an idea, because if they did cross the water, he can now see it. He might have actually predicted it. By the looks of his lines, he may have thought ahead on that one, and he's decided that Mr. Lobster would possibly cross the water soon if he hasn't already. Those artillery are holding up really well against these, so he's going to use his helicopters to fight that one SAM unit. And because there's only one, that'll probably be quite effective. However, because he's used the orange command, they're going to stop and attack all these units first. Which isn't really too bad of an idea, because the artillery would be better to deal with that, so you may as well use the helicopters to deal with the infantry. Because the infantry can't do too much about it. But those helicopters are going to be easily easily overtake that SAM. Same for that one there. Unfortunately, SAM are just like artillery. They're very effective, but to be fair, you don't need as many units of them. Let's check out what Mr. Lobster's doing up on his island over here. Oh, he's trying to expand now. You can see Zloygiz over here, so I'm assuming Zloygiz can see him. Yep, just about. Kind of, if he's very observant. Those artillery look like they're going to get outnumbered by these infantry. And the SAM might just be enough of a deterrent over time to take out these helicopters or keep them away. He's taking one out there. He's only got 3 left. One's being repaired over here. Oh, 4 left. One being repaired over there. Those infantry have taken out those artillery pretty well. He is amassing a lot of infantry, and he's able to hold this off because their infantry don't cost much. So let's have a look at the economy. We've got 600 every minute for Zloygiz, the red, and we've got, for blue, 695. So that's pretty similar. But considering Mr. Lobster's position, that was a bit harder to obtain for him, in my opinion. So he's done a very good job at trying to expand in multiple different directions at the beginning of the game. Without that, he would have struggled at this point to keep going. So he's got a couple of units chasing over there, which I probably wouldn't do. I'd probably just keep them over here to expand, build up a larger force, and then send them in forward, because you can't see what's going on here. So maybe he's just using these as a couple of scouts, which wouldn't be a bad idea either. And what's Zloygiz doing in this forest? So he's got a lot going on in this forest. And Mr. Lobster really needs to see what's going on there. The helicopters are trying to assist in the north, where Mr. Lobster has taken over most of this island over here, at least the side that he owns. And Zloygiz is still trying to take over this land here, and hopefully he doesn't forget about these units and brings them back into the fight soon. Which, to be fair, I don't think that'll matter. I think this will catch him. But it looks like Mr. Lobster is going to be able to hold off that area, and he's probably going to be able to push back. Those helicopters aren't numerous enough to deal with the massive amount of infantry spam going on right now. The infantry are quite strong, to be fair, but they don't do almost anything to helicopters. They can shoot them, but not very well. But it's the fact that he's being attacked here by the helicopters. The helicopters just simply can't reach over here, so he's able to outnumber and do like guerrilla tactics around, hitting at multiple different angles really hard. And from Zloygiz's perspective, he has pretty much lost control over that section, but he has managed to get some units for over here, which will boost his economy over time. But unfortunately, he has ran out of energy. He made a rush for this right at the beginning because it was important, and he's forgotten to actually build on it. He's done the curve. I like this curve. It's the nice little concave. So these units are coming in, and multiple artillery are able to shoot at them because of this curve shape. So it does provide an extra defense. It does make you weak at the end points, but if you can defend them, so like this point's alright, but that one's quite poking out. Because it's stealthed, it's harder to spot. But you can defend it with the aircraft, which is a good way to do this. And he's trying to get his helicopters to go in to take out some of these SAM units. But they are going to get distracted and shoot other things. I think this one's fine. I think he's got the right target. He does. But he's going to get hit hard by those SAMs as well, so he's not going to last much longer. Mr. Lobster is up in the corner. He just has a nice long stream of his units. And I think this is a mistake. He's sending them in pretty much one by one. I think he's stopped it now, so he's got these units going in. But these guys are going to sneak around there. And they're all going to go in sort of drips and drabs. They're just going to go very small amount of numbers, but in a long line. So they're going to start getting taken out quite easily. He is chasing Zloygiz up in the top area over here. So even if Zloygiz is taking this area over, he's just pretty much slowing down Mr. Lobster on the eco section, having to take away the red and then put it back into neutral before he can then claim it himself. It might be worth just rushing these units, try and take them out, and then come back to take the land. So Mr. Lobster is still sending these units down there through that way, and this one boat is trying to take over the territory there, but he's got another unit coming out, a SAM unit. A missile ship, sorry. SAM unit. And he is just about taking over all the land over here, so now his focus can be pretty much on the battle and Zloygiz. But I do think he needs to retreat these units and build up a bigger force before moving forward again. Because that is pretty much what Zloygiz is doing. He's defending here, building up a larger force, which he will then later push through with. But over in the top, the tactic of just keeping up the pressure seems to be working. However, it looks like he's spreading himself out a bit too thinly, and it might actually hinder his progress here, unless he builds up that force again. But that chase is going to be faster for Mr. Lobster because he's got a lot more units taking over this land, so they will start taking over. These circles will go down a lot faster than his ones will take over, so eventually he will catch up to him and he will stop this territory grab. And it won't matter too much, but it looks like Mr. Lobster is gaining a lot of the control, but I believe Zloygiz, if he was to push forward right now with these units, he'd be able to push back Mr. Lobster quite easily. Especially with the amount of artillery he's actually got. The only problem is he'd have to defend this side as well soon. Those helicopters are tearing up the infantry. They are doing a really good job at controlling the progression of Mr. Lobster. It's just unfortunate that he has lost this area. And there you go, they've made contact now because he's caught up with him. And they're not going to last much longer, and Mr. Lobster will be able to claim all of this land as well. He has remembered these units. They did have to make a new line though, so they are coming back into the fight soon. And these artillery are building up into a very sizable force, a scary force. That looks like it's about critical mass, where no amount of units will be able to suppress them. Unless it's an equally sized force of artillery. But he's setting up more defences. He thinks that Mr. Lobster is holding back a lot more, which he is now. He has stopped that stream of units flowing to their death. He is holding them back in this little choke point area, which is really easy to defend. But he is struggling with energy. By the looks of it, if I remember correctly, he doesn't have any energy supply. Oh, he's got one there potentially. But he hasn't really got it yet. He's got one there. But I do think this one would be the easiest to defend, so I think that would be his best bet. Looks like Zloygiz has managed to sort his energy out. He's got this thing here, the energy well. His helicopters are still being produced. And those helicopters are tearing up the place, because helicopters can land on the ground. It still frees up a space for helicopters to be produced, so even if you've got one airfield, you don't need to buy airstrips to keep on filling up on helicopters. You can just keep producing them as long as you move them. There is a bit of a force over here, but they're going to be met with the artillery. I think they will be able to overwhelm this artillery. But Zloygiz is sort of in a bit of a predicament now. He's the one that's trapped. Despite being the one who trapped Mr. Lobster has turned the tables, and he's trapped the opponent instead. He could potentially build like a barracks and a naval fleet and go that way, with some transport ships. Which might not be a bad idea, because that would be quite a lot of eco. That island's not small. Helicopter got shot down over here, so there's SAM units there. Is Mr. Lobster building factories? Yeah, he has been for a while. I remember now seeing the SAM units. And they're going to help defend against those helicopters quite nicely. So it looks like Mr. Lobster's reacting very well to what he sees on the battlefield, and that's very important what to do. So, although he is going for a lot of infantry to keep on a high amount of pressure, that is more of the constant distraction that Zloygiz has to deal with. And Mr. Lobster is reacting around what is going on with his own units. But Zloygiz has been doing alright at defending. I think this curve has saved him. This amount of units is going to push back very easily. Did Mr. Lobster decide that wasn't worth defending in that way because of the artillery? It looks like it. He's just sent his units forward instead. So that's why I don't like these lines unless you're using artillery yourself. But I don't think Mr. Lobster's going to be able to defend that. Let's have a look up there. He's got an airfield though, and these are absolutely unprotected from the air. So I would save these units up until a bit closer to the time, about here maybe. When these units get to about here, that's when I'll start sending the strikers in. You don't want to send one in, because then you'll start using SAM units there. And that's something you don't want to see yet. So he is pushing forward with his artillery down in the south. In the north, it looks like he's just about barely holding off Mr. Lobster. But I think Mr. Lobster is fine with the pressure, and he is not going to stop with that pressure. So Zloygiz will break over here if he doesn't change things up over there. It looks like these units are going to get through eventually. But it is mountainous areas, and if it looks like Mr. Lobster is going through this little valley, which is a good idea, because going over the mountains in any direction would be really slow. You can see they're moving a little slower here than they were here. And he's bringing in his SAM units to defend against those. He is sending these units in, and I think Mr. Lobster is saving the striker. I think he wants 2 before he fires them. He is pulling it back the SAM a little bit as well. He does know that he might need them, but he doesn't know when. And there's no point in sending them against this artillery. But again, at this point, you're sending our units to their death. They're not actually firing. I suppose this artillery is. So that's not a bad idea. He looks like Mr. Lobster's breaking them in the north, and he's holding him back in the south. This line of infantry, although they're not doing any damage to him, maybe it's a good thing, because these guys aren't moving. They aren't able to make any progress, which means the strikers that are coming in now will be able to do a lot more damage over time, because they're just not moving anywhere. They won't be able to break up and go to the airfield anytime soon. But it looks like Mr. Lobster is taken over in the north. He is swarming down towards the south. taken over all the land there, and he has conquered most of this land here, split off into 2 territory grabbing groups. And he could just as easily use some money to do that, because he is not spending as much money. Because the infantry are so cheap, and barracks are a lot cheaper as well. And that seems to be the majority of his force. And even down here, where he spammed artillery, which the infantry aren't damaging, not really, they are holding him back, they're just making him extremely slow. Meaning that the strikers, because they're not defended by Sam, the strikers are getting a massive amount of damage on them, which could be avoided with just a few Sam units that are placed there. And if I was Zloygiz, I think at this point, with the amount of pressure there, I would use this artillery defense to go either this way or that way. I'd probably send these Sams that way and then these that way, and then you should be fine. You can't even launch these because they're going to go off this way of the runway, and they're going to fly straight into these missile ships that are in the water now. And Zloygiz is about to lose his energy well. There is not much of the map he can deal with now. It's literally an all for nothing in the top over here. He has finally brought some SAM units down to help defend against those strikers, which is a great idea, but it looks like Mr. Lobster is bringing back his units. Probably to build up a larger force to deal with these one last time, and hopefully that'll be enough to stop Zloygiz in his mind. But those strikers did launch and they flew straight into those missile ships. That is not a bad place to keep them. Probably here maybe as well. Split them off in 2, why not? And Zloygiz got hit by his energy, you can hear the warning. It's taken away his storage. And he is not going to be able to stop this line of armies. It's just streaming in every direction now, and those lines are a bit messy, I've got to be honest. But it does kind of look cool. It's crossed over in the middle, and he is spreading through there. So from Mr. Lobster's point of view, he can't see how big the army is that's actually attacking him over here. He has sent some artillery that way to deal with it, but I think he's pretty much just going to hold this little choke point here for a while. He's spreading out his units. This is not a bad idea. Because he's got so many artillery, having a big ball of artillery might make it a bit harder, but splitting them off like this might actually be a bit beneficial because he's going to curve round. You know the curve I like. He's doing that perfectly, I've got to be honest. And it looks like they're both trying to do it. Maybe not even intentionally, but it looks like it's doing it. So those strikers are going to come back now, but they are going to be met with SAM units which are going to struggle. And you could use these strikers. Now that these missile ships are there, you could draw a line command and just draw around this section that way. And that would be able to go around the missile ships, and you still get your strikers in the battlefield. So we got a nice little RT and RT fight there, but Mr. Lobster, it looks like he's going to lose it. Because those strikers are not going to get enough damage in there with that amount of SAM there. So Mr. Lobster does have a lot of pressure on him right now, but maybe he can hold it off long enough. Because I don't think Zloygiz is going to be able to fight from the back for very long. That is probably where I'd put some strikers, but I know there's SAM units there, so that might be quite difficult to do. Personally, I'd be bringing these units back. I know it's a great position right now, but it looks like you're holding the line here. So you need to bring these units back here to defend against what's coming up soon. And from Mr. Lobster's point of view, he is seeing a big amount of artillery firing against him. He is really trying to hold the line here, making sure that these sponge up some of the damage so that the airfield survives longer. Strikers are trying to defend, so Zloygiz has sent his strikers across the water around the the missile ships, but they have noticed that and they're going to try and intercept on their route home. And it looks like he's trying to take out some of the key structures, or at least just scout what's there. And Mr. Lobster is still trying to damage these as fast as he can, but I think Zloygiz is actually going to be successful up here. However, the pressure being put on Mr. Lobster He is now going to retreat here. He's going to lose some of these strikers to these missile ships. That was a very good move to try and intercept them on the way home. That's good forward thinking there. And Mr. Lobster is now going to try and push through this artillery wall in the forest. Did Zloygiz actually change anything, or has he just set up some more lines? He set up more lines, he's built more units, that's what it's for. I think if he had used these to go over there, I know it's always good to have something behind, but I think if he had used them there, he might have had just that little bit more to push him over the edge. And even if not, he had to defend here anyway, so either way would have been beneficial. But I'm pretty sure Mr. Lobster has got this game in the bag now. There isn't much time left, but he's setting up a massive line of defense there. I think he's just going to build up a large force before he does anything there. He wants to see if he can hold out, maybe. But because it's a forest, you can't see exactly what's there. So I think he doesn't want to overcommit to something that might not be successful. So he's just holding the line. He's bringing back his strikers down from there. It was a good move as well, because he thought he was going to lose this. He made his strikers go to this airfield then, so they didn't end up getting being the cause of collateral damage. And it looks like Mr. Lobster is going to be able to hold back the force over here, and he's going to be able to push back. I think what he's hoping is that he did take away the defense there, and this was all he had. So that when he takes it out, his units are just going to come down and push through it. Zloygiz is trying to build another town. Yes, he is. So he was hoping that he would take this area and that this would be safe, but he's lost this building here because he was hoping to get that economy, but he is struggling on economies because he's got so many units in defense and they're not really doing anything. And they cost money to keep alive, to keep them maintained, and all the units that are also being produced are costing money, and the structures around cost money. So if they're just in defense, I always feel weird about that. He's also built a nuke. That's another reason that was in the negatives. Which, I don't know if that's going to get built in time. It's going to be surrounded by a nuke. But those strikers are still avoiding these missiles. I'm actually quite impressed of how he's doing these line commands, getting them in there and trying to get them back out as best he can. Mr. Lobster could have intercepted these if he knew where they were coming from. He could have spotted that and intercepted them on the route home. He's going to do that now. There we go. They're on the move. So I'm pretty sure this is going to be the final battle here. And we're going to have to watch Mr. Lobster try to take out Zloygiz. And what is Zloygiz's economy like? He's in a bad situation right now. So he's got 500 economy. He does have a town there. And Mr. Lobster has pretty much the entire map. I would probably try and build something here just to get across, because you just never know what could happen. You know, he could have a nuke. And it could destroy most of your army. So both of them are trying to push forward with these orange line commands at the minute. They're using the line commands to keep their units spread out, especially with artillery. It's very important to have a line of it so they all fire, not just a big blob of it so that only some can fire. And because of this line, these units are being very effective at trying to push forward, but they are also getting heavily damaged before they even get close to the artillery. The strikers are also trying to help with support from the air, which these missile ships could probably come a bit closer now to try and help defend his infantry there. I'm pretty sure these artillery might actually be enough to hold this off. They might be firing forever, but they might be able to hold it off. However, Mr. Lobster is coming in through the east as well. He's going to be bringing his units down from here and send them this way. This structure won't last much longer, which means Zloygiz's economy is going to get hit again while it's already struggling. But that missile is nearly done. I think Mr. Lobster can see that now. Yes, he can. Those have revealed it by being close enough. The missile is nearly ready. have a look. So yeah, those artillery are easily able to hold off those infantry. Infantry are great when it comes to a large landmass, when you can get around the artillery and around other units. But they're not so great at frontline assaults on the artillery. Where is he sending that? He's trying to hit the structures. I think that's going to get shot down. No, it's fine. It'll probably hit. I think that did a lot of damage, but in my opinion, you shouldn't go for structures. Not this late in the game. I mean, he's got a large force to deal with here, but he should be okay. But they're going to get hit by the aircraft. If you can see a blob of airfields, then great. Hit those, because you'll get the air units as well. But you'd want to hit a large amount of units. That would be my deal with a nuke. And he probably can't afford another one, so I'd destroy this structure. It looks like he's sending in his air units over here to try and take out these. I can't see many SAM units, so it's quite possible that that'll be extremely effective. But his strikers are coming down as well. They're landing on this airstrip. I didn't spot that then. There's an airstrip in the forest here. That's how stealthed it is. It's on the airfield there. So they're going to be able to have more range and come in to try and potentially take this out again. Mr. Lobster can't actually tell whether that's changed or not because of the way stealth works in this, by the looks of it. Yeah, he's sneaking up around here trying to catch the corner of this defensive wall. It's the only bad thing about the concave line is if you get it right at the edge, that's it. They can only just shoot one at a time and they got 3 firing back. We've reached the end of the match now. I'm pretty sure Mr. Lobster won this. But I think Zloygiz did a very, very good job at defending it, especially at the end. And the thing that made Mr. Lobster win this, I think, was crossing over that water very early on and trying to make sure he held this area. And it looks like he's got nukes of his own being built, so he was going to blow him up if he couldn't defeat him anyway. Anyway, there are 2 videos on screen right now. Thank you for watching until the end. I'll see you around in one of those videos, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.